Hello and welcome to another edition of On The Whistle. I'm afraid it's another video coming to you after another Sunderland defeat, after another game in which they didn't score a goal. It's turning into a pretty miserable end to the season. The only positive that I can really offer you at this point is that we've only got one more to do and then we get a summer break and hopefully Sunderland can get themselves sorted. Unfortunately it's kind of everything feels a little bit lacking inspiration at the moment. I thought the first probably half an hour of this game was pretty much exactly what we saw last week against Millwall. I was a little bit surprised that Sunderland stuck with the back five, that they didn't try and be a bit more adventurous, maybe get some more attacking players into the team. Having said that, Sunderland did create good chances either side of the interval. Just been speaking to Mike Dodds there and he said that Sunderland didn't deserve to lose and they should have won, and he's probably true on balance of play. Two big chances just before half time, a good counter attack where Chris Rigg had a shot that dragged it wide of the near post. I actually thought it was maybe a good save from the goalkeeper. Trey Hume had a big chance, well saved just before half time. Then Jack Clark had two big chances sort of in the second half that, to be fair, normally he's been putting them away all season. Today it just didn't happen. Watford created next to nothing. We have to say that. And to be fair to Mike Dodds, he's just said that we didn't deserve to lose. And we then spoke to the Watford boss, Tom Cleverley, and he didn't sort of question that opinion at all. He said his Watford side had performed pretty poorly. He was quite disappointed with large aspects of their play. So I suppose it's a little bit different to a couple of the recent performances where I do feel like Sunderland did create enough to score, and there were times either side of the interval where the back five did work a little bit better. Clark did get into better positions, but I think there's also like a reality whereby you can't really draw too many positives from the game because it's been such a disappointing half to the season. Watford hadn't won at home since November, someone was just telling me. So that gives you an idea of the kind of struggles they've had. And yet again, Sunderland have managed to be sort of obliging opponents at the end. So it was slightly better, but I do think, again, it's the form clearly isn't good enough. And the most disappointing thing for me is, although today was better in terms of chance creation, it is still feel like Sunderland have become a very reactive team. They're not on the front foot, they're not dominating games, they don't seem too bothered about dominating possession. And today, fair enough, as it West Brom, nearly at Leeds, it nearly worked, but I just feel like, I feel like I miss the team of sort of last season, even the first half of this season, as frustrating as they were. I'm a little bit kind of disappointed watching them at the moment. I feel like maybe a little bit of the ambition has gone, even if we acknowledge today they were probably a little bit unfortunate not to get the points. I'm going to go through some of your comments and questions here. Mike Smith says they didn't deserve to win, we didn't deserve to lose, but we lose so easily to teams that don't have to do much to win, and that's because we have no one up front. Yeah, I think it's a fairly persistent theme, isn't it? I think, especially in the first half of the season, Sunderland invariably created more chances than their opposition but didn't take them, and the opposition didn't seem to have to do as much to score, and that was certainly the case today. Listen, very, very few goals this season where I felt that Anthony Patterson could have done better. He probably could have saved that shot today. It also shouldn't have got through midfield. I mean, that was far too easy. But again, it's just today, yes, Sunderland missed some big chances, but it's hard to know at the moment how they're trying to score other than through Jack Clark. Al-Shish went up front and I thought he did okay. He played that lovely little pass into Rigg. I like Al-Shish, he tries things, it doesn't always come off. He's not hugely consistent, but he is a player who at least takes risks. He looked really, really isolated and really, really frustrated today. He went straight down the tunnel when he came off. To be fair, Mike Dodds was just talking about there in the press conference and said that he'd spoken to after the game and that was all resolved. He understood Al-Shish's frustration, there was no problem, so I suppose that's kind of encouraging. But yeah, I just felt, it just doesn't feel to me like they're getting enough bodies around whoever plays up front at the moment. Obviously, we've had this issue all season where the calibre of the strikers we brought in last summer, they haven't been up to sort of top six championship standard. And at the moment, I feel a little bit for whoever is up there, whether it was Dak last week or Al-Shish last week. I just don't think, I don't think there are enough bodies around them, and I thought we saw that again today. So, yeah, I think I agree with you. It's the story of the season in a nutshell. Not clinical enough, and sort of conceding soft goals, and ultimately losing too many games. The one thing I will say, the thing that troubles me is that at the start of the season, I felt like Sunderland were the dominant team in a lot of games. While they had the better chances today, it wasn't a great watch. So I think that's probably something that's shifted over the last few weeks. Peter says he's feeling apathetic after that performance. Brighter spot either from the game or the near future. I'll give you a positive that I think Adji Elise looks really strong. I think he's made a good comeback from his injury. It doesn't look to me like there are any issues. in terms of he had such a long absence out, but he looked sharp, he's making good challenges. I think he's potentially got a big season ahead of him next year, so I realise, there's maybe not a huge positive, but I definitely think that's one. And if Dennis Irton can get fit, I do think that's going to strengthen the side next season. So I suppose that's something that I'm taking a little bit of sort of comfort from. The other positives, we've only got one more to do and then we can have a summer break. I think that's probably about it, really. Listen, they did, it's important that we're fair as well, and when we assess the performance, they did create chances today. It wasn't like the Millwall game where they never ever looked like scoring. Although I still would like them to be more free-flowing, I would like them to show some more ambition and try and be a bit more dominant. You have to say they did create some chances today, so I suppose it was slightly different to the Millwall game and maybe some of the others that we have seen recently. Got one here from John, who says, how likely is it that we make an appointment within a week or two of the season ending? Have they even started looking? With players to sign and fans convinced, surely we're not going to let this purgatory run on for another month or two. Well, I totally agree with your point. I think we need someone to be really, really proactive at the end of the season. The whole point, really, of giving Mike Dodds the interim role, even though I think it felt like almost an admission that the season was over with so many games still to play, was the least you could step back and say, well, this gives them the opportunity to reflect. It gives the opportunity to run a very thorough process and hopefully not almost rush into another wrong appointment like the Bale one was. So I think it's absolutely imperative that we see some really positive action at the end of the season, both in terms of communication, coming out and addressing supporters, talking about what's gone wrong, what needs to change, what's been learned, what's going to change, and also delivering a little bit of action. And as you allude to there, John, the biggest thing they can do is give us a new head coach. So that's something that I'd really like to see. Do I think it will happen? Yes, I'm fairly hopeful that there will be a fairly quick resolution. Whether it will happen immediately in terms of the few days or the week after the season, I don't know. I do think one of the reasons why Sunderland waited until the end of the season to make it a permanent appointment is because they were interested in speaking to people who are currently in work. So I think realistically there will be some candidates who may not become available until their respective seasons end, and that all gets sorted. So will that delay it a little bit? I think there's a possibility. However, I'm hopeful, and I do think that the process has been sort of progressing behind the scenes, and I am hopeful that there's an appreciation and an understanding that they need to be pretty proactive. So whether it'll happen immediately as the season ends, I honestly don't know. I think that's dependent on multiple factors. My hope is that it will be in place, in order to draw a line under it and move into the summer and sort of come back and hit the ground running from pre-season. I know that although the head coach doesn't necessarily have full control over signing players by any stretch of the imagination at Sunderland, I think there is a desire as well to ensure that whoever it is does have an opportunity to put their stamp on the squad and have an input on that. So I think that's going to be a really important part of the process as well. A few of you have asked sort of around that question, so I hope I've kind of answered it. Andy says, why do we persist with five at the back when we have nothing to lose at this point in the season? By playing a more attacking formation, we can learn more about the players for next season, including fringe players that could be given a chance. I do agree with this. I found some aspects of the selection over the last couple of weeks really strange. I'm not sure what we were going to learn about Dak playing up front last week. No disrespect to Bradley Dak, but we kind of know what he can bring. Today it seemed like a bit of a missed chance to move Styles into midfield and see what he could do. You've got a decision to make over Styles. Why not see if he can bring something in midfield? So that was something that I was a little bit disappointed with. I do think that moving to four at the back and playing a more aggressive system would create more opportunities to have a look at someone like Mundell, maybe Tommy Watson, who was on the bench today. The only thing I would say in mitigation slightly about today is Sunderland were way more creative with five at the back than they were with four. They were really, really poor for the first half an hour, but actually the 15-20 minutes either side of half-time was the time in the game when they created the most chances, and they were still playing with a five at that point. I actually thought one of the most concerning things about today was when they went to a four and made some attacking substitutions, they actually looked less threatening. There was one big chance when Hemir played a nice little pass into Roberts, who just couldn't get the ball out from under his feet in time. Backman then came off his line to make a really good save from Styles. But that was kind of it actually for the last 12-15 minutes. So that was one of the most alarming things for me. So I just want to put that as sort of a slight thing to say that actually today Sunderland looked more threatening with a five. But I do agree with you, Andy. I'm really interested because if Sunderland are planning to potentially play with a five more often next season, I think there's a big question over, is that going to, especially at home, is that going to give them the attacking options they need to win games and push for promotion, which ultimately is the goal? And if they're not really thinking of playing that way next season, they're going to go back to a four and trying to get more attacking players on the pitch, then why not do that now and sort of try and build some momentum? So I definitely think there are some question marks over that. hopefully next week we'll see the sort of Watson obviously came on the bench today. It would be nice to see him get some minutes, maybe see another 1 or 2 attackers into the team. Is there an opportunity to give Hamir a run out next weekend? What have you got to lose realistically, given how poor Sunderland have been? I think he's had a really difficult season and he's got to offer a lot more, but why not have a look at him and see if he can get a goal and head into the summer with a bit of positivity? I definitely think, it would be nice to see maybe a slight shift of approach next week, albeit understanding that Sheff Wade are in much better form than Sunderland are, and they're a team that's going to deserve a lot of respect after beating West Brom 3-0 today, which was obviously an absolutely outstanding performance. Last one that I've got here is from Adam, which says, will the club retain the services of Mike Dodds if they decide to appoint a new head coach, and would Mike Dodds want that? The answer is yes and yes. As far as I'm aware, it's very much the club's plan to bring Mike Dodds back into the coaching team. The new head coach will have the scope or the freedom to bring in one coach of their own to add to the group, providing that the club are happy with whoever that appointment is. Mike Dodds has already said that he's happy to go back to his coaching role. He'd like to be a head coach permanently in the future, but he's not in any rush to do it. So I totally understand the debate over this one. You would hope it wouldn't impact the calibre of coach that Sunderland are looking for in terms of would they want their latitude to bring in their own coaches. But as far as I'm aware, as it stands, the plan is very much that Dodds will go back into the coaching staff, and he's certainly happy with that. I have to say that I'd be very surprised if that changed. And yeah, Steve says, thank God there's only one game left and that's too many, which I suspect probably speaks for a lot of you. And if you've made it this far into the video, then well done, because I know it's been a difficult watch, and I'm just so hoping that through the summer and the next season we have some positivity to talk about on these videos. The last thing I'll sort of leave you with is the best thing about today was some gorgeous tributes to Charlie Hurley. Credit to Watford, they were really classy in their approach. We had a moment's applause before the game started. The pitchside announcer sort of reflected on Hurley's career and paid tribute to that. We had a really nice minute's applause in the 87th minute. Hurley's sort of picture was on the screens as well, which was a nice touch. And the first 10 minutes of the game, all you could hear in this ground was Sunderland fans singing, who's the best centre-half the world has ever seen, Charlie Hurley. Honestly, it was all you could hear, and what I loved about that is there are people in that away end who will never even seen Charlie Hurley play, but the image of him and the love that Sunderland has for him is so strong that they all knew the song and they all wanted to come and pay tribute to him. And that was a really, really sort of nice moving moment throughout the game today, actually. So rest in peace, Charlie, the greatest centre-half the world has ever seen and ever will see. Thanks for all your comments and questions. Thanks, as always, for watching. And yeah, one more to go next week. Let's hope we can finish with a win.